And thank you very much for giving that introduction. The only thing you did not mention, and I would like to bring it out in sharing my experiences, is that when I come to Pondicherry for the first time, I came as a cynical non-believer, only being ready to be convinced by logical mind and not by magic. But magic did happen. But the curiosity remained. Where is the difference between the mental logic and a spiritual experience like meeting the mother for the first time and without questioning, surrendering yourself? In fact, that was the starting point of my questioning that led me to the Sri Aurobindo Ashram bookstore, where I asked the person concerned if he can recommend something which can explain to me what is the theme of the two masters, Sri Aurobindo and the mother. And that is how I came to know about the Life Divine. Life Divine, the book, because the life divine to be led is a perpetual struggle. So before I begin this conversation and sharing of my experience, I want to read something to you from Sri Aurobindo's book, The Life Divine, which explains my perception that I will share with you following this. Quote, at the outset, we can easily see that since this is an evolution out of a material unconscious into spiritual consciousness, an evolutionary self-building of spirit on a base of matter, there must be in the process a development of a triple character, an evolution of forms of matter more and more subtly and intricately organized so as to admit the action of a growing, a more and more complex and subtle and capable organization of consciousness is the indispensable physical foundation. The end of the triple process must be a radical change of the action of the ignorance into an action of knowledge, of or basis of unconscious into basis of complete consciousness. Having been a science student, then an engineer, I was familiar with the physical sciences, and I understand the sense of evolution in the physical sciences. But this was a new kind of a revolution to me. And it opened up a totally different horizon of thinking, acting, and behaving. My own background was coming from a dedicated Hindu family with very strong nationalistic leanings, and also my mother being a very staunch religious person in worshipping and following all the rituals that the religion demands. There was always an element in me which some or the other rebelled against these rituals. And after meeting the mother, reading the Life Divine, getting involved in Auroville's project, slowly and gradually the things started dawning on me, which changed my perception on life altogether. Delving a little into the theoretical aspects, I want to share with you that in terms of the physicist thinking of evolution, the matter transforms into movement, a movable aspect. A movable aspect transforms itself into more vital, more activities, and so on and so forth. Like putting it in this way, from the inconscient matter, as Sri Aurobindo calls it, gradually a movement emerges, a life emerges, and passes through different stages of evolution till it reaches a point which we call the highest rung of the evolution as of today, the human being. And in the human being, we see the evolutionary process continuing as far as the physical is concerned, continuing as far as the vital is concerned, but at the most prominent part of our evolutionary process at the moment is the mind, but with a very clear understanding of what the psychic is, and perhaps a certain vague understanding of what spiritual is. My understanding from Life Divine is based on this paragraph that I read to you, that whilst nature is helping with its own way this evolution to take place, according to Sri Aurobindo and in the Life Divine, what he comes up with saying is that a moment has come. The mind has developed wide enough to be able to collaborate with the nature to hasten the process of evolution to the next stage, where the mind should be taken over by the psychic. It's a very interesting idea because it takes you away from most of the orthodox thinking that we have of relationship with what we call the God, the Almighty, the Allah, or anything else, to a divine consciousness as the origin and the existence and the end of it. And the inconscient is the introvert and the conscious is the extrovert. So delving into this, why I'm sharing it with you is because that has made possible for me to offer myself into an operational foot soldier status to participate in Auroville, because Auroville, in fact, is that physically established experiment which is meant to bring the focus on the life divine as part and parcel of this evolutionary process, to reach a point where the human beings consciously collaborate with the nature to create a focal point which the physical sciences call a point of mutation, where the next stage of evolution can take over. So Auroville is not merely a manifestation of a city, but Auroville is basically carrying the spirit of this collaboration with the nature to evolve in the sense of the life divine. Having said that, my own life since 68 has been devoted basically to manifesting the mother's vision of the city, and my own behavior as one of those persons who has taken this journey or this adventure is basically to try and learn how to carry those values in my day-to-day life in my actions, in my behavior with other people, and live it that way in the best possible manner that I can, because every one of us is carrying lot of difficulties, lot of problems, and lot of negatives in ourselves from various circumstances and so on and so forth. And each one of us has to learn to try and find ways and means in which they can convert their negatives into their positives. That is a personal effort. But on a collective level, the effort is to try and manifest something which is visionary, which the Mother has given to us in response to the life divine to be manifested as envisioned by the Sri Aurobindo. I mean, this is one aspect, which is my guiding principle. And at the same time, there was a time, and this is what my experiences, personal experiences with Mother have helped me in growing into what I am today. That in 1970, having already got involved in Auroville, I was very keen, having been part and parcel of the commercial world or multinational organizations, that to build the city like Auroville, we need revenue, we need money. And can we be looking at possibilities that can create a support, which is a very regular one, but it is also an offering. I was very familiar by that time that there were a number of organizations associated with ashram, like Sri Aurobindo Society, which was the project holder for Auroville itself, Mother Society, the World Union, many other organizations. And they had centers all over the country, and some of them also elsewhere in the world. Mostly they were meeting once a week like you do for satsang, discuss the writings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, your own personal experience and so on and so forth. But people who were professionally competent and capable also were involved. So my idea was that why not this competence, this experience becomes led towards a creativity that either generates an activity or a knowledge that can also earn revenue. This can support the center as well as it can support Auroville. And I put this idea into writing as a project, which was presented by the then chief of Sri Aurobindo Society, Navajatji, to the Mother. I was at that time living in Calcutta, working there. So I received call from Navajatji that Mother wants to see me immediately, please come over. And I was anxious to know what have I done that you want to punish me. He said, no, that's the project that you have proposed. She is very interested. She wants to talk to you, so come immediately. So the earliest I could make it, I came and I was presented in her presence. And what surprised me was that after I did my pranam, she just took a sheet of paper, an A3 size sheet of paper, and a writing material, and she asked me, what shall we call it? No more questions, no more explanations. I was totally lost. So all I said was, Auroville Service Mother. So she wrote, Auroville, Auro Service. Give it to me. Now that became my first mission, because I was living in Calcutta, I was working for Calcutta, and since my job also involved traveling, I started building up contacts with the various units in Bengal, in Orissa, in Bihar, in Assam, which were the surrounding areas, so on and so forth. And this movement started developing into something really practical. But in the meanwhile, since I was now regularly coming to Pondicherry every month virtually, because one of the tasks assigned to me was that since Bharat Niwas was under development at that time, and steel required for the construction at that time was under control, and there was a committee set by the government of India which operated from Calcutta. I was given the task to coordinate with that committee to release steel for Bharat Niwas and later on for Bhakti Bandir. So that made it possible for me to visit virtually every month, and I used to spend a week or so every time that I got an opportunity to come to Pondicherry. And this also afforded me an opportunity once in a while to go to the mother to directly report as to what was happening with the project that she had given. And then came the Sri Aurobindo centenary year, 1972, in which I became a foot soldier as far as the organization of celebrations are concerned, particularly in areas which what I call the Himalayan mountain range, starting from Jammu and Kashmir, ending up in Nepal, and all the regions in between. And then came, at that time, Bangladesh was very fresh, very new. We took Bangladesh also into account, and so on and so forth. And I, along with two of my friends, were a small team who organized this work, and it was a joyful experience. And that gave us three an opportunity every time we finished one project to come to her to receive her blessing and to report to her. And there were occasions and times where we saw another beautiful side of the mother, which is full of sense of humor, compassionate, practical as well. So this is an opportunity that has, as far as I'm concerned, been an integral part of my growth, being in constant touch with her when she was in the physical. During this process, something happened which I want to share with you, which has left a deep impression on me. I used to be a heavy smoker. And in one of these visits to the mother, after I had reported on the work, I hesitated to walk away, and she noticed that hesitation, and she asked me, "Is there something that you want to share with me, my child?" So it came out of me and said, "Mother, I need your help to give me up smoking." She looked at me deeply, smiled, and said, "Oh, so you want me to perform a miracle?" I was so ashamed of having said everything. My head bent. I had nothing to say. I was walking away, and suddenly she says, "How many cigarettes do you smoke a day?" Mention a number. Are they filtered or unfiltered? This practical knowledge coming from the mother was a real shock to me, not even a surprise. Filtered, mother. Are they good quality? Yes, mother. Is there a better quality? Yes, mother. Can you afford it? Yes, mother. Smoke less of it. Smoke the best quality. Continue working the way you are for me. One day, this habit will give you up. Blessing my child, and she gave me a blessing. I was surprised. You will know why. Because your real mother will give you slap on your face and say, "If you smoke again, I'll not even let you into my house." Then came a moment when our service was offered a possibility to have an exclusive marketing possibility for Kendu leaf from Orissa. Now, as you perhaps know, Kendu leaf is the base material in which the bidi is rolled, the smoking, the Indian bidi that is. And that has meant in 1970 a revenue of between 1.5 to 2 crores a year. So I was so excited, I came running to the mother to take up permission, if I can take up this project. And I want to share with you what I remember of the exact dialogue which it explains. So when I explained to her that this Kendu leaf, if we get the exclusive marketing agency, we can make between 1.5 to 2 crores a year. So she asked me, what is Kendu leaf? So my response was that it is the leaf that they roll beading into it. And first, she did not understand what I meant by beading. But then, after a while, you mean, I nodded my head and yes. And the reaction from her was a thumping no. Such a loud no that the whole of ashram heard. And the effect on me was that I was shaking like a leaf and crying at the same time. I just ran away from that. It was so strong an impact on me. I went and sat in the meditation room, crying my heart out. Till Nanita came and saw me and said, what has happened to you? Why are you crying? And I sobbingly explained to him what had happened. And I said, Nandita, I don't understand. When I spoke to her about my own smoking, I mean, she was so practical and so nice. And now she has simply said so strongly, no, I don't know what to do. I'm confused. Mother has a reason, is what Nandita said. But if you want to hear from her, I will ask her if she will give you time. So it took a day, but she was gracious enough to grant me the time. Nandita had already explained what I had said. So when I went in her presence, she says, my child, if you're sick, shall I throw you out of the house? So my obvious answer was, no, mother. And then she said, but if, shall I allow you to spread the sickness? That's the answer. Deep down, on fundamentals, no compromise. On detail, taking the human nature into account, give the human nature the possibility to be guided and goaded into the right direction, but not forcibly. This has stayed with me till today. This has been the guiding principle of my own life and also dealing with my own children. And also when I'm behaving and dealing with other people, this has been basically my approach. Then when I come to another aspect, which is also very interesting and has been part of my experience with her, which is an important factor which has guided me and goaded me into the future. That any time, you see, normally what we are used to is that when we are a teacher, we have a guru. Whenever we have a bit of a problem, we run up to the guru and ask for help. In this case, with Sri Aurobindo not being available physically anymore, mother not being available physically anymore, and habit being formed over millennia of years of having a guru leading you by that, what do we do? In case of Auroville, when she became aware that she will not be able to physically be with us for a very long time, she gave us the focal point of our reference. For me, that reference point is the Mati Mandir, where anytime we have any doubts, because that is where she has put her presence. And when I look at the design development of Mati Mandir, it is a three-dimensional manifestation, as far as I'm concerned, of the book that Sri Aurobindo wrote called The Mother. 12 gardens, each one named by the Mother in terms of the evolutionary process of the humanity. From matter to perfection. When you look at the 12 petals, each one mentions to a quality, a value that we need to imbibe in ourselves. When we look at the three entrances which she has named, Maheshwari, Mahasaraswati, Mahakali, Mahalakshmi. In English, wisdom, knowledge, force, power, beauty and harmony. I'm amazed that all is there for us to see, visualize, understand, and correct when we have a doubt. Just to give you an example, knowledge on its own can lead us towards negative, it can lead us towards the positive. But knowledge guided by wisdom leads us to the positive, also helps us in ignoring the negative influences. And therefore, when we take an action, which is the Mahalakshmi, Mahakali, what is the result is the beauty and harmony, that is the Mahalakshmi. Similarly, if I have a doubt in my mind whether my action and reaction with any one of my co-workers has caused any disruption or misunderstanding, if I go and sit in one of those petals called humility, to try and find out what has been my contribution to it. Self-analyze. That gradually helps me grow more and more into consciousness as a person when dealing with my colleagues and friends and family. At the same time, it constantly is helping me, which Mother would otherwise help me physically when she's present, provided I see it from that point of view. So for me, Auroville is the manifestation of the life divine. And the methodology or the instrument suggested is Karma Yoga. Most of us who have been brought up in different faiths and different religions, our efforts end up by worshipping. And in worshipping, sometimes we also are selfish and we ask for some benefits in return. But in this adventure of consciousness that Sri Aurobindo and Mother invites us to participate in, it's only giving. What you receive gracefully, you don't even ever ask for it. And that is the principle that Mother has envisioned for each and every Aurovilian to practice. Offer yourself totally and completely with all your knowledge, and whatever you have. In return, what you receive should be a grace, and you should be happy. In other words, an attitude of a sannyasi, but a sannyasi in the type and spirit of the king Janaka, not of a poor man. So these are my areas of understanding and experiences that which I'm very happy to share with you. But living it day in and day out, you have to face all types of traumas, difficulties, and so on and so forth. And if with her grace and guidance, if we remain positive, as far as I am concerned, it sees us through all the hurdles that we come across. Today, Auroville is passing through a very, very critical moment. And I cannot help but refer to it because an invitation to the humanity to come and live together, to work towards the human unity. Today, after 53 years of its inauguration, has brought us to a level where the lower vital is the most predominant factor of our behavior, as if we have not learned anything, but we have made not a progress, but we have gone down the consciousness. And that again brings me to the design of Matrinam. It's interesting that it has occurred to me that you are on a level ground, and suddenly when you're proceeding towards the entry to the Matri Mandir, there's an incline. Is that incline related to my downward trend? Because I see it, having made a mind to work towards a spiritual way of life, perhaps there are pressures within, pressures of society and pressures of our own thinking and so on, so which are taking us downward. And perhaps that downward pathway also is indicative of that. But then I ask myself, is there a help available? I look left, I look right. Yes, suddenly I find either humility or sincerity or equanimity as a focal point. So now I move towards it. That gives me the positive aspect to move forward, which I do step by step and enter into the Mahimana. So my progress is step by step. Sometimes I step up, sometimes I step down, sometimes I step up, sometimes I step down, till I reach a point where the progress is continuous, that is symbolically represented by the ramp to the inner chamber. So when I arrive at the inner chamber, in Mother's vision, I would be at that time completely, absolutely with a mental surrender, empty mind, so I can be in communion with the divine consciousness directly. It's not a place for just a casual meditation. It is part and parcel of your journey of the consciousness. That is, for me, that is what Bhakti stands for, and that is what also I've been associated physically with the Bhakti development for the last 22 years. Earlier, I was one of those who did duty in digging up the ground and so on and so forth when Mati Bandar started as a construction and so on and so forth. So for me, Mati Bandar is symbolic of the presence of that divine consciousness which I am moving towards as an individual and as a collectivity towards that moment which will give Auroville that possibility of becoming a point of mutation. It may take hundreds of years, thousands of years, I don't know. But as far as the physical part, the home of us is concerned, Mother envisioned it to be visualized, formalized in 5 years. Roger, with whom I had the privilege of working for a long time, and we also became very close friends, said to Mother, 5 years too short a time. So she said, take 10. At 53 years, we are arguing whether we want a city or we don't want a city. That is the beautiful situation as of today. And I have no doubt that with Mother's grace, her vision will be fulfilled, even if not by us, people who come in the future after us. With this, I want to close my conversation